Well, last night, former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris took the stage in the ABC News presidential debate. Joining us this morning to break down what happened is DU Professor of Political Science, Seth Maskett. Seth, I believe we have you on the phone. Can you hear us all right?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. We know you're out of state this morning, so we appreciate it. I am just curious,
Certainly.
with the debate this close to the campaign, realistically, how much does it end up swaying how a person feels about a candidate?
Well, what it can do usually is, affect kind of short-term impressions of the candidates. We saw this in 2016, where it was a pretty lopsided series of debates. Hillary Clinton, according to voters, repeatedly beat Donald Trump, and that did actually shift polls in her direction for a little while. But those effects rarely last more than a few days or maybe a week at the outside. So we could see this, the coverage from last night end up helping the Harris campaign in the short run. It probably won't have a major impact on the overall election.
Right, and that was going to be actually my next question, is does it have any impact, especially with this election playing out in a way that has been so historic? Does it have anything to do with November, or is that just too far away in people's minds?
Well, one thing where it could, and this is where this is a somewhat different election from what we've seen previously, is that, in 2016 it was Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. 2020 it was Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It was basically these candidates that people have known and have been household names for decades. Kamala Harris is still a relatively new player on the political scene nationally. And so a lot of Americans are still forming opinions about her and, still sort of open to new impressions. My impression is that she actually made a very strong impression last night. And for those who were still trying to get a sense of her, it was mainly a positive one. And that seemed to be a lot of the feedback from some of the focus groups last night. So to the extent people were still, seeing her as something new, something to make up their mind on, they got some new information last night, which they largely haven't in previous elections. And that's where this potentially could make a difference in November.
Right. And just before we let you go, Professor, what were kind of your main takeaways for both candidates last night? What stood out to you in particular?
I mean, really what just caught me over and over again is how, sort of after the introductory section, she was just largely trying to bait him into, discussing issues that either weren't comfortable for him, such as abortion, or, were just sort of getting him to go off on conspiratorial rants about the size of his crowds and things like that. And she was quite skilled at that. She really did get him off his talking points, get him off of attacking areas where, the Biden-Harris administration is actually politically weak, and got him sort of talking about his own areas where he's not very popular. He had, I think, as kind of the outside candidate in a time when, a lot of voters still have concerns about the economy. He got in some points on that, but for the most part, this was very lopsided, and she was just really keeping off his game for the whole night.
Well, we really appreciate, Professor, you giving us this forward look of the impact of the debate and your takeaways. Thanks so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me on. Good talking to you.